Hi folks. I hope people can hear me, but I can hear myself. Why is that? Let me just try and join again. Give me a second. Hello, check. Okay, I cannot hear myself. This is great. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Let's see. We were at right. So previously, the last session. I think I'm just gonna get started. In the previous session, we had built this grep tool, right? For folks who may have missed the last session or don't have much context, I'll give a quick recap of what we're doing here. Khoj is going through a re-architecture. It's right now at a 1.0 series, and it's going towards a 2.x series, right? So as part of that re-architecture, as part of the Khoj 2.0 re-architecture, we're doing a few changes, but we wanted folks to get involved in the changes we're making. And one of the ways which we're trying to involve folks a little bit more in the process of our re-architecture, the thinking we have around it, the motivations, the thinking, and the actual updates that we're doing. We wanted folks to be more involved in it. We are an open source company. So while folks can look at the code changes that we're pushing, doing a live coding session felt like an interesting experiment to try, to give folks a little bit more real-time view into how we're building code, what we're transforming, but also if you're interested in building for contributing to existing AI agent space, AI agent software, or AI systems like Khoj, getting an idea of how these big or moderately large code bases are maintained, open source code bases are maintained, transformed, may be useful. And if you're thinking about some of your own projects that you may want to kind of leverage AI systems for, you can get an idea of how we do it in Khoj. Maybe you get some inspiration, maybe you get some ideas to assist with your projects. So that's the overarching kind of motivation of why we're doing it. We're going to do this for a week, every day, an hour approximately. And then zooming in a little, what we were right now concentrating on, at least for the first session and the session, at least, was the feature of improving Khoj's document retrieval capabilities. So Khoj can, right now already, you can sync your notes or documents with Khoj. And when you ask it questions, Khoj will look up information in your documents, retrieve them, and then answer your question as best as it can. In the first session, what we did was build the grep tool, which allowed Khoj to answer a class of questions it couldn't answer before. What is called, like the class of question is called universal questions. So that's a class of questions Khoj couldn't answer before. And by universal questions, again, just for clarification, I talked about it in detail in the previous session, but just for clarification, are questions which you have to go through the whole document set to be able to answer definitively. The other class of questions are existential questions, things which once you've found an answer to, like once you've found a relevant match, you don't need to look further. So stuff like if you're asking about when I sold my car, when I sold my like Honda Civic, if I find a note about when you sold your Honda Civic, I can terminate my search at that point of time and just answer your question. Those questions Khoj could answer before, like technically could answer before, but it could not technically answer questions like how many cars have I ever sold. For that, even if you find one note with reference to the Honda Civic that I sold, doesn't mean I didn't have another car I may have sold at an earlier point, and you still have to go through all my notes or documents to retrieve the list of all such items. So that kind of question is called a universal question, and that's what Khoj could not answer before. With the grep tool and the list and view file tools that we built, Khoj can technically now answer those questions, right? So we've gotten Khoj to a stage where at least it has some of the tooling that allows it to answer document-based questions, like questions from your personal documents better. But in this session, what we're going to do is try and like figure out, hey, while it can technically do it, how do you actually make Khoj use these tools well in a coherent form, in a form that makes sense to us humans at least. But if they become better, then like, I mean, at the minimum, they should cross the bar of being able to go through coherent reasoning trajectories or tool use trajectories to get to the answers that we care about, right? So that's the goal of this session. This will involve a lot more debugging, testing, rather than kind of building, like writing too much code. So folks can get an idea of how that's done instead of just the writing code bit that we did the last time around. Cool. Let me see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'll get started. Okay. Okay, so let's get into it then. What we have set up here. So one second, let me just show. We are at the commit where we added the grep tool. I cleaned it up a bit, like this instructions. I increased the verbosity of instructions, gave it a little bit more information. Wait, over here, I gave it more information. And yes, and the second thing I did was I tried to disambiguate it from the existing search tool we had, which was the semantic search tool. So there were two ways now Khoj can search through your documents. One is the semantic search natural language search tool, and then the other is the regex search tool. The description tries to disambiguate when Khoj should use which of the tools. And so that's one, I think, update I did in the cleanup, and I think I maybe renamed the tool to grep files or something like that. But those are like some basic things I did. I have not done any tuning yet. And so we're going to start on that process. This onstage commit is just an unrelated change, which will avoid us from like having conversations fail to save in case there's an error. Right. And so let me start this thing just to ensure we are on the same page. We're on this commit. We're here, and then we'll go through and ask a few questions of Khoj, see how it responds to that. And then if we need to tune any of these, which tool it used and how it used it, then we'll kind of do the appropriate changes as required, right? Right. Okay, it's still starting up. Code is running now, and I have a setup here where I'm gonna use. So for our use case, I'll again just show folks what we have in our document set right now. What we have is mostly a bunch of code documentation, but here somewhere we have one file for OTC's wait, why is this not? Oh yeah, here, the OTC bean count file. This one contains a ledger of this man from 3rd millennium BC who was discovered, I don't know, like I want to say 20, 30 years ago. There was a bunch of items found on him, berries, animal skin, whatever it is. And at some point while I was writing another tool, I recreated this ledger, like a accounts, a transaction history of what all he would have bought and sold as he was going about his day. This is a fully fictional recreation based on actual items found on him. So whatever, some parts are imagined, some parts are, the gaps are filled in by me. Substantial gaps are filled in by me. I can show you how the file looks just for context. This is a plain text accounting tool called bean count. I use it for my transactions. This is a tool I built for auto completion for this accounting tool. But here are transactions. The transaction blocks look like these. This is a transaction. It mentions the date on which it happened. In this case, I have a 3345 BC date. Well, we don't have minus, but yeah, 3345 date. What the transaction, I think it's called a county and something description or something like that. But basically, who did you pay, and then what did you buy? This was an income of like, so basically, this person did a hunt, or she did a hunt, but killed or whatever, like hunted 2 deers. That's why it's gotten 2 animals, and then they have now in their assets 10 meals and like half an animal remaining. I don't remember the specifics. So, but basically, you get the idea. Like this person's going through their life, hunting stuff, gathering berries, and then eating food. They go to market at some point of time to buy and sell stuff. Yeah, they go to this Bolzano city market to buy and sell stuff, and then I think this is one of their final meals. So that's how this transaction file looks. And we're gonna first just start with like asking some basic questions from it just to see if Khoj is able to, with its new tools, even like look up some basic metadata information about what's in the user's like document set. So for this scenario, I am Otzi. My name is Otzi here. And for this agent that I've created, all it's saying is you manage Otzi's ledger, load, and some context about it. There are no knowledge-based restrictions on this agent, so it has access to all the code documentation, which we're not going to be particularly using right now, but it does. Just to make it a little bit more difficult for this, and then and has the otc.ledger file. But basically, we don't restrict what it can access from the document, my personal knowledge base, but we just tell it that there is a ledger in there and it is OPSI's accountant, right? Okay, let's get started. So then I'm going to just ask like a research mode question about like first just being like, how many documents do I have even, just so that we have a basic check of this guy doing using the list file tool ideally is what we want. So this is a class of questions here. So use the list file tool and gotten mostly the answer. We'll be looking at the debug logs on the side here, hopefully. Oh. Why did it fail? This error I've seen before, this is kind of unrelated, but there's some issue with like new stuff we've built in Gemini outputting some things with the new tools. I do not want to get into this, but basically you can see that I would kind of use the list file tools here and got like 35 documents, which is the correct amount of documents. It's also listed all the documents in there. And we can also see where it used the list file tool somewhere around here. There should be in the debug logs. There should be a call to the, all right. There are 35 documents, it says. That's good, but where, yeah. So you can see response for determining relevant tools, list tools with nothing in it. So it's just called list files with no path passed to the list files tool, which will then list all the files that are in the user's document set, right? So that's good. That's like the basic thing that Khoj, like a basic capability that Khoj has with these tools now that it did not have before. Hopefully the second time around it doesn't do this thing and we can actually see the messages that happened. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to get into this side bug for now. Okay, yeah. So the second question we want to ask is not just to list all the files in the thing, but being like, hey, find all mentions of ibex in my notes. Again, this is another class of questions that Khoj couldn't answer before because it couldn't, as I mentioned, answer universal questions of the nature of find all of X. Like it does not know when it's found all, even if it says it, like it'll give you an answer. It actually technically can't know when it has found all. So those are just like false answers, even if it sometimes gets it correct. That's just by chance. Now here we have come into, so the grep tool got called is what we expect. That's why we've hit the breakpoint, right? So like here you can see it's called grep files with the regex pattern ibex. That's the correct thing to do. And there's no path, which is also good. We want to see who calls the grep file thing, and we want to, yeah, we have a breakpoint here. So we want to just see, oh, it didn't find the match or something that happened. It didn't hit the second break. Oh yeah, I found 0 matches of ibex. Okay, so that's an interesting side thing for us to fix, which is what just happened right now. Like, so just for reference, there should be a mention of ibex in here somewhere, right? So there are ibexes mentioned here, but it didn't find it. I don't know whether folks can follow along and see why that could be, although we saw Khoj. Oh man, it's still doing this thing. Anyway, okay, I'm not gonna get into this still, but it didn't, like when you see here in the grep tool, grep, grep files. It searched for IBEX, but it searched for IBEX with lowercase I, and that triggered it to not find the capital IBEX. Now, for our use case, I think mostly we don't particularly care for like case of the search. So maybe we can ask these guys to use like ignore the case. That's possible. Then have that. Ignore the case of pattern search pass down to single. In file object by regex. I mean, this guy mostly moves, but I don't. Okay, it's fine. Insensitive, sensitive search always. I'm not sure if the Django ORM allows for like a standard way to ensure there's a ignore thing. I think it should, but just if I don't know. Why is it doing all this? All right. Okay, great. There's a iRegex. Brilliant. So that's pretty simple. Hopefully we can get this working with just this minor change. Okay, so that's one issue we didn't particularly want it to get tripped up on the case of what we ask. And like for this example question, while it's a simplish question, it allows folks to search for things like all the times I don't know, hung out with this person, or all the times I visited this restaurant, or all the like some proper noun, and then it did something, right? What you want is this capability of doing grep on your notes, all your notes, allows in the like final form, in the idle form, allows Khoj to, at the next step, look up context around that. So grep tool, just for reference and just for folks who don't remember or don't know, does a line by line match. So it'll only find the line where that specific regex is put in. It does not, you can't do multi-line basically. By default, you can't do multi-line queries. But what you want is for Khoj to be able to first look up the keyword based lines where and like in your documents where all is this keyword mentioned, right? After that, what we'd ideally want Khoj to be doing is, because in the output results, that Khoj sees output results from the grep tool, it sees the line numbers in the files where that like match happened. We want it to be then able to use the view file with like line ranges being passed. So we want Khoj to call a file with the line ranges around the matches it's found to gain more context. And like, that's the vague idea of what we want Khoj to be able to do and string together these tools. So if you do ask about all the times when I went to this place, or I had food over here, or I met this person, Khoj will do ideally a grep lookup for the person's name or some such. Once it's found all references, then it goes through viewing the relevant files and pulling out the context around it to best answer your question. If it's not found it in that one line, which is not necessarily likely, right? Okay. Now let's see. What were we asking? Right. Now, again, these are not reproducible. Flows usually with like interactions with LLMs are not usually reproducible. We do set seed somewhere. Okay, that's in an env file, but which has other stuff in it, but in this env file. But basically, Khoj allows you to set a seed. I think it's called Khoj LLM seed or some such, and that gets passed down to these LLMs. They allow most of them allow setting a seed. I think Gemini allows seeds, and OpenAI models allow seeds. That reduces the non-determinism of given a query, the responses, but it doesn't remove it completely. So while we do use in our test framework seeds to limit variability so we can reproduce issues, like ideally we'd want to ask the same question, have Khoj ask the same, like use the same tool with the same query, so then we can kind of ensure it now performs better. But of course, we can't do that. So we can hope that it'll mostly use the same tool or some similar thing. Right. So we were asking find all mentions of ibex with lowercase for now. In my notes. Oh, I asked this guy. Well, it's fine. I wanted to ask the accountant agent, but okay, so it is lowercase. That's good. And then we hope that it does find. It still didn't. Interesting. Okay, let's just look up Django or regex filter case insensitive. Okay, so it is, yeah, it's this iregex. Why didn't it find? We're back here. It's trying to do other queries while code. Regex pattern was, okay, this is interesting. I don't know why. And there was no other path passed to it. So unclear why it actually didn't. Let me also go back up here and then. Okay, it's found at least a match for this goat situation. Maybe the goats mentioned. And then line match. Oh, maybe this is the problem. Okay, so let's see. It did say it found a match. Then we split this line. This is not supposed to be a filtering step, but it seemed, because this regex search is not, I see. This regex search is not doing a case insensitive search, I guess, which could be the problem. Okay. Okay, let me just ask this guy again. Update the grep file tool, grep files tool to also do a case insensitive regex line match right now where it's doing. Right. So again, for folks who didn't follow along, we right now notice like, hey, while Khoj is asking for a word keyword match, what's happening is it's not case insensitive. We ideally want it to be case insensitive. We don't particularly care. Wait, how is it case insensitive? Oh, okay, this one. This is all I think we want. Okay, and then let's start this thing again. So right, we want it to be case insensitive search. There's a push down filter which is passed to the DB to do the regex lookup through all the user's documents, and that we've updated already now to be doing a case insensitive search. But then after we get all the documents, we here try and match, update what is displayed to the model with the file name and the line number prefixed to each line match, like each line that match. And so this is the part which is doing that. This is not supposed to be a filtering step. It's just supposed to be adding metadata to the matched lines. And what we noticed was this was not actually, like, it was doing a filtering, and that's because we hadn't updated. Oh, wait, we have not actually done the right thing here. Need to pass it. No, that's fine, I think. Regex is, all right, that's fine. And so over here, we, instead of doing re.compile regex pattern straight up without any flags, we put in the ignore case flag, which allows us to find all lines that match the regex pattern passed with like consistently do an ignore case is basically the idea. Okay, so we're great. We are actually reproducing, like getting the same consistent like tool use, which is great. Now let's see if we found any matches. Okay, we did find matches. That is great. And then let's just go. Did we find? Okay, we found all the line matches with ibex, and that's okay. That's great. We have now all the stuff we need here to answer this question, hopefully. Okay, so Khoj went ahead and searched for ibex, and then after it found the 8 matches, it also tried to view the file. This is not particularly relevant for our case, but it's fine. Let me look at the chat to just confirm. So many questions, not yet. Okay, and then code. I hope this thing again doesn't like die on us because of this conversation.files bug. But if it does, then that's fine for now. I don't want to get into dealing with fixing that. Oh, wait, it didn't fail this time around. That's great. And then here you can see all the times it's, yeah, this is great. So it found all the ibex related transactions. Oh, this is great, right? So this is again a class of questions that Khoj could not answer before. We're making it mostly do like single step stuff, but we're kind of testing out whether it can use these single step tools well enough. For now, we found one place to optimize where we used we ignore the case, right? So we don't need to have Khoj worry about the case of the thing. It's not mostly material for our use case. So we do a case insensitive lookup, regex lookup through the user's documents. Next question, we should again not do this guy. We should talk to the OC's accountant and in research mode. And the next question, we just like ask it a little bit more involved, a question where we're like, find all the things that I bought and sold at the Bolzano City Market. Now this is a place in the transaction that I know Otzi went. And what we want Khoj to do is do a grep lookup of Bolzano City Market. And then actually let me make it non-caps lock just to make sure we test the like case insensitive stuff as well again for like a multi-word search, but do a grep lookup and then look around, or at least look at the file to answer the question correctly, because otherwise it wouldn't maybe know enough information, enough context about the transactions. But let's see what it's done. So it's gone ahead and right now done a natural language search. So it didn't do grep. It just did a natural language search, did find some reference. Now it's done a grep, it seems. Oh, interesting. So right. So this is interesting again, where Khoj is automatically capitalizing these things. Although I've not asked it to, which is fine. We'll hopefully find it irrespective. Okay, so yeah, we hit here, we found 10 found 10 matches where this happened. And right, this, I should have shown you that. Maybe I'll show you next time how that looks. But basically how do the results, like the line match results, look to Khoj? The part where I mentioned there's a file name, line number prefix. If you've used grep or tools like that, you would know how that looks generally. But otherwise, it's good to know what Khoj sees when it's looking at the results of the grep tool or any other tool. Okay, so it has, let's just see what all tools it used. So it used view file. So because it's using view file, it kind of knows the context around, which is fine. This is what we wanted it to do. It started off with doing a natural language search first. So it's a little maybe inefficient, maybe not, unclear. So we're not going to like look into that too much right now. But then it did a grep search, and then it did a view file. Those are two things that we do expect the model to use. And then let's just see. It's answering me. I'm OC right now. On this, you sold 2 items, increasing your cash reserves. And then items bought on 10th, right? So let's just verify it's not making stuff up. What is it? Bolzano City Market. Bolzano City Market. When was this? On 9th and 10th. Okay, so it's like back. I guess I OC was there at the same time. And on the first day, I sold stuff, and on the second day, I guess I bought stuff. Right. So there are 2 things here, which is 50. Yeah, Camus height is 50 Cori, and this road deer's height is 12.5. So that's correct. It's not making stuff up about that. 140 where I saw somewhere. 40, 20, 40, 60. Okay, so this looks about right. This is all the Bolzano City Market transactions. And then it ends here at 30. Ends at 30. Okay, cool. So it has all the information, and we can trust that it has all the information because it used the grep tool and the view file tool. If it had just used the natural language search tool, which it started off with, and which Code Cloud right now has, like the stuff in master right now has, then even if it found that one note, and it would try and usually answer the question as best as it can, but that wouldn't be the kind of comprehensive answer that we're looking for here where we are asking questions like not just what did I buy and sell at the Bolzano City Market at any point of time, but find all the things that I bought and sold at the Bolzano City Market, right? This is an example of a question where there's like an all in there. We need all the information, not just one instance of it. Right. So we have Khoj able to do this as well now. And then let's make it do a little bit more involved a thing. So for now, the three questions we've asked are a little bit more simpler. They don't require Khoj to look through the whole document and collect information from across it. Again, we're right now just mostly working with one document, but even then, it's not kind of collating information from across stuff. Right now, we'll make it do a little bit more involved thing. We'll make it find all the meals that I had in what are the dates here? Meals. Right, last week, right, in April and May. April, May. Oh, 3, 3, what is it? 3, 3, 4, 5. Actually, no, not fine. Calculate, yeah, calculate or chart the cost of all the meals I had in meals units, right? In meals units, the cost of all the meals in meals unit in April, May of 305. So it's like supposed to kind of do the grab, do the grab, do the view file maybe, and then grab view file, code tool, to create the chart that we need, right? Just a little bit more. And like the April and May are not like together. Like the Bolzano City Market question was like all of the information was in one place. The other interesting thing is it's not using it's into like this view file to peek inside. Like, yeah, that's what I want is Khoj to do is pass line ranges rather than like view the whole file. Now, this is unfortunately for our testing, this is only 250 lines. It's not that big a file, and Khoj can kind of like straight up like view the whole file. But usually, well, not usually, but oftentimes files aren't that small, and we will truncate. So I'll let Khoj do a thing, but right now it's just looking through semantic. It's doing a semantic search thing. I'll just show you the list files, right? List files tool. Here we, well, one, we limit the number of, wait, no, I don't want to do the list file. I want to do the view file tool. Right, this one. First, Khoj can like pass the line ranges, like start line, end line, to view in the file. So for large files, we expect it to do this. But if it doesn't do it, because it doesn't know, like right now, it's like, see, doing a view file without the line range. Then for this file, while it will work, because it's a small enough file, what we want is it to use line ranges for bigger files, because otherwise what we do is right. If it's more than 10,000 lines, no, if it's more than 10,000 characters, maybe we should do it on line, but irrespective right now, if it's more than 10,000 characters, then we truncate the file. And then we say truncated use line number to view specific sections. So we cut it at 10,000 and be like, hey, you can't, like, we're not going to give you like more than 10,000 characters for now. In the file, the first 10,000 characters. So if you want specific sections, then look for specific sections, right? How does it look for specific sections? It's supposed to look for specific sections using the grep tool. The grep tool returns, as I mentioned earlier, but we have not hit that debug breakpoint. Again, it passes back the results with the file number and the file name and the line number prefixed to each line match. And Khoj is supposed to use that context to then ideally call view file with specific line ranges. So we have not been able to test that bit. And let's just look what's code. Oh, so it's passed in the whole. Yeah, it's passed in the whole file here. And that's another place to optimize where. So it's more expensive, much more expensive, I want to say, but more expensive for sure, and more limited. The kind of output the LLM can do. So the LLM can take relative to output, it can take a lot more input context. So you can pass in like modern LLMs allow at least like 120K token context windows, but like a million is becoming possible. Not usual, but like a few folks allow for million token context windows, but the context windows are stuff you can put in. The output is again been increased for thinking models. The reasoning models, the one which are like speaking whatever they think, like the stuff they're saying here. Okay, my plan is blah blah. Those models, while they have larger output, the amounts they can output, they're like that's still fairly limited. Like at 8,000 tokens or 32,000 tokens and stuff like that. So input is a little, and output is more expensive. So output is more expensive, more costly, more expensive, more time consuming, and smaller as opposed to input. What we want is here, because it's outputted the whole file, because the file was small enough, it could kind of do this. It would have been more time consuming. It would have been more expensive. And again, it won't work for large enough files. What we want Khoj to be able to do, and I don't think we'll do it as part of this this session, but what we want Khoj to be able to do is like just pass in the file name as input to the code tool, which then loads up in the sandbox, and then Khoj can do stuff with that, right? So that'll like eliminate the need for it to output all this crap, and wait, output all this stuff and still get the results we need and work with like larger files than what we have right now. Now here it says it's constructed a chart, but I don't see a chart. Oh, the thing ran did a plot meal chart thing. So this is the code sandbox output. Plot meal chart here and goes Seaborn. PLT is matplotlib. Matplotlib is a Python tool. Then it says it here. It's what it's saying. And that ran a chart summarizing. Did it say that somewhere in the output? Oh, no meal data found in April is what it said here. Okay, that makes sense because I was like, is the chart rendering broken somehow? But no, it says no meal data found. Right. Another thing I forgot to mention till now, but one of the other useful things while you're testing or debugging these things is to use a reasoning model. A reasoning model, as I mentioned again, are like things which output their thoughts, their reasoning. In Khoj, you can see the model's reasoning in the scratchpad portion, like in here when it's like this brain thing is there in the train of thought. And that's useful to, apart from just like as a user being able to understand how Khoj reached the conclusion that it did, for you as a developer also, it's useful to know what the model is thinking based on which it decides the next tool. And so that's what I'm going to look at right now. Okay, so wrote this code. I want to see like what finally has. And the caveat is fairly big caveat. It's like it does make up stuff in its reasoning which doesn't match what it's going to actually do. Sometimes it'll be like, hey, I'm going to use the, I don't know, like the online search tool, and it'll end up using the notes tool. So they're not fully aligned on the reasoning portion that they're outputting to the actual kind of content output they do. So to like take whatever they're saying with a grain of salt, but they are more helpful than if there was no output whatsoever. Okay, so yeah, so see, you see here where it's actually has identified this part. I've identified the root cause, the previous parsing issue, the code mistakenly assumes blah blah date. But then it says like I've corrected the transaction processing logic to rectify this, have added additional debugging checks. It says the same thing again. And then okay, yeah, so it's like my effort now yield accurate daily meal consumption for somebody's. I've corrected the parsing and I'm ready to present the final results. Like this part is um whatever, like it's given a table, right? It's not made the chart, but it says it's made a chart. When it's in its thinking, you can see it's noticed that it like there was an issue with chart making, but then it continues to think it like use some tools to fix it. This is at least a class of problems with the Gemini models, the Gemini reasoning models, the Gemini 2.5 reasoning models, because they've started allowing the model to use tools while it's reasoning that can only kind of use like server-side tools. And I think because of that like capability they wanted to add in the reasoning traces, they've maybe encouraged the model to think it can use tools in general, or the models ended up thinking it can use tools in general when it can only use some tools. And when those tools have been specified, we don't use Google's Google server-side tools right now, at least, right? Again, not to put all the blame on the Gemini models, because this, if you have interacted with other open source or other models, you'll see in their thinking, they all feel like they want to use tools. I don't know, based on the training data that they've been trained on or what, but they want to be like, hey, I looked at the online sources, I looked up this thing, I'm thinking this crap. And while it can think whatever it wants, it doesn't actually have the tools during its thinking process, even with earlier models. So that's like one of those caveat parts, but at least it's like kind of plotted out this thing, 10, 10, 8, 11 meals, even if the chart wasn't created. And so that is good. Let's note down some of the things. So case insensitivity is one thing we have fixed. And sensitivity. And then regex grep to case insensitivity. The other thing is we identified was better test. So like we're not testing with a, oh, let me also ask another question, maybe from Khoj, which is not in, wait, like this, there's a code documenter again, like, let me see like how this guy performs. But basically this guy has just been told, it's like the Auth's accountant agent, that in that it's not restricted on the tools it can use or the documents that are accessible to it, but only its instruction set has been tuned to be like, hey, you're like a Khoj documenter assistant, you help folks, documentation assistant or whatever, like, but you help folks set up Khoj, use Khoj, troubleshoot Khoj, whatever it is. And it does have access to, like it's been told, like, hey, in my knowledge base, there's some amount of Khoj documentation you can look up, right? So this will kind of like, I just want to test out or like show, test, debug, whatever you want, how code performs across multiple files, not just one file. And let's think about a question that we can ask it. Find all the ways I can configure the OpenAI base URL. Is that the right word for it? And talk the code. I want to just like kind of make it again, do things across a bunch of documents. I'm just trying to see if we have like this kind of OpenAI proxy bit, use OpenAI proxy. What is it called? Some base URL thingy. Right. I think we make it like we mentioned this in a few places. API base URL. Wait, what? No, API base URL. Can't I like do, I think, okay, API base URL, API base. Okay, so there are a few places we mentioned API base URL. So let me just go and ask Khoj that question. Mention API base. Configurations where we configure the OpenAI base URL in the code setup, in code setup, during code setup. I think this is good enough. Okay, this is good enough. Let's see what code does on that. But while code is going about doing its thing, can keep it on the side here and note down some of those like things that we had to do or we remember to do. Right. The other thing was that we found was code sandbox should be parsed input files directly, input files via reference rather than for text being put in. As I mentioned, that's not efficient or practical for larger files. The other thing is we have not tested this bit, but view file, we want to test view file line range usage specifically combined with grep and its output results. That contain line number, file name. Right, and then there was another thing that I had in my mind. Oh, right. The other problem is that the note search tool, the semantic search tool, that's already existed for a while, and we don't right now in that output, like prefix matches with the line numbers that they matched. So while the grep tool, because we built it newly, we added that. With the node search tool, we don't have that yet. So when Khoj does a semantic search lookup, it doesn't get the file name, line number context that it can then use idly to do view file with line ranges right now. Okay, let's see what it's doing. So it did like semantic search, then it did another semantic search. It's not doing. Right, you see here, like, see, you're saying like, first I'm going to leverage my familiarity with the code and use grep files. Great, that's what it said. But then it went ahead and did like the semantic search. Now, there could be an actual genuine issue with the name of the note search tool. You may get confused, but there is a discrepancy in what it's saying, at least right now, and then what it's doing. And so I should note that down as well. Note search doesn't prefix matches with file name, line number, and the other thing was, why does model say it'll use view files and then ends up using note search sometimes? Is it the note search tool name, or is it just the model being, or is it just the model misaligned thinking? Some other thing to look up. We have resolved this issue. We have not resolved this issue. This we can, this is a simple fix we can do at some point. And this we need to test. Cool. We've solved one issue. We have not. Okay, let's see what it did find was embeddings inference endpoint. Sure. It can use the OpenAI API to create model embeddings. Then this is that model that is correct. Create a new EM model API. Sure. Right. So here you see, well, this could be an example of the model thinking it can do a thing. So it's answered the question being like, I asked find all the configurations where we configure the OpenAI API URL during code setup. It didn't use the grep tool. And so because of that, we already know Khoj doesn't know if it has all the files, but it went ahead and thought it had all the files. Think we're at the 1 hour mark, so I'll take maybe 5 more minutes to look through this tool definition just to be and confirm why it's doing this. Like we added some disambiguation, right, between the, like I showed earlier, the note search tool, which is somewhere up here. It's called notes, and that's why one of the reasons it could be tripping up. But we studied that early concept I mentioned where like we tell it like, hey, you can use this for semantic search or to answer existential questions, but you can't use it. We aren't using the word existential questions here because I don't think, well, we can test it out, but I don't think it'll get it from that. Because you have to like, if you have to give the definition with the keyword, then it's not particularly useful. Just give the definition straight up. But again, something to be tested, good default to start document search with. Okay, so yeah, we say this here, right? Good default to start document search with. That's one of the reasons why it's using, could be using the note search tool more regularly. We can try and remove this and see how that works. And then the other part is especially helpful to answer questions for which some relevant notes or documents being found can complete the search. So this is the part where I'm trying to tell it, hey, you can't use this where only some some relevant nodes are enough, because here in the grep tool, we tell it, especially helpful to answer questions that expect looking through all notes documents, and or you can use and or for which you can maybe this instruction can be simplified a bit. The other thing I've noticed is these models do this. We didn't see this behavior right now, but these models seem to do this, like put placeholder, like some path down, which is not necessarily relevant to the path. Like it doesn't know the path at which the file is, or like the path where it wants to look up something, but it'll put that path down. Wait, what were the two things? All right, let me remove from the node search. Good default bit. Oh, oops, I didn't remove it. And then here, let me put the specification of large files. I see here. So that's another reason why it could not be putting line ranges in. So yeah, so like the way it's stringing it together, it's doing a semantic search where it doesn't see line numbers. And then like some of the comments in the view file part, I think it's fine for now. For short effects, let me here also add the part where like I wanted to tell it like, oh wait, I forgot the if folks asked anything. Oh, it's actually quite hitting 40 minutes. Oh, you asked what's my favorite tool, Nick. Okay. Let me just answer one question and then we can like, yeah. Wait, not this guy. We'll also see this. That's a good question, because what's my favorite? So, yeah, let's just go for this. What we want, that's a good question, because like again, it has to look through the file and view it. Like use maybe a grep tool, maybe I mean, if it uses view file, that's kind of like a shorthand, which isn't what we want to test. But at least if it like, yeah, like does a natural language search, finds the oc.bean count file, ideally, or wait, what happened here? Or it does a grep file and then finds some references, goes ahead, looks at view file, then that's a good like loop to test out. What are some validation errors? Man, these validation error things. Let's go again. Hopefully we don't hit these validation errors. There's some changes which recently added to use deeper typing. They don't. Again, just like I think what we're hitting is one of those model issues, maybe. No, it asked notes q equal food, which correct. And then it went in and Yeah, so it doesn't. That's why I'm like a little. I mean, one way it'll know is when it does a view file. So again, on Nick has asked a question about how does it know how large a file is. The way it'll know is when it does a view file, it'll get that warning at like a greater than 10,000 characters, whatever it is. If the file is greater than that, we truncate the results as we showed earlier. Where was that? Here somewhere. View file content. We truncate the file and we tell it like use line numbers to use specific sections. So it has to go through a view file and then realize it's a big file. Now, we could do something where it does list file. List file's fairly basic and it's just passing paths. We could give it the file size as well. So maybe I should put that in. And that would be a good addition, so that it doesn't need to kind of do a view file, fail at it, and then do line prefixes. Let me add that. List files should list files sizes slash total line count in results to help avoid researcher having to view file, or just like to give researcher context of file sizes. And this could be generally useful as well, like for small files, while it could kind of output the whole file like we saw in the code into the code sandbox. Like we could be like, hey, for larger files, don't like try and output the whole thing. Though ideally, we just don't want it to output file contents into the sandbox. Just be like a reference file, but at least it has like we can in a bunch of different places give the model context about, hey, this is a large file. You need to kind of like slice it up. Otherwise, you won't be able to deal with the connect context windows. So it's generally useful for the model to know that. And maybe we'll add it in the list file saying as context for the model. I think, yeah, I don't, wait, let me try one last time with, what's my favorite food looking at? I want to say, what is my favorite food I bought? In the year 3345, just kind of encourage it to use scripts tools and stuff. What's my favorite food? What's the favorite food? Uh, I, yeah, there is. Let's just see what it does. Code generally gets the current date injected into its context, so it knows it's whatever 2025. But so I just was wondering if it understands, and like it can disambiguate the two. Okay, so it's kind of understanding this thing. It's found 35 files, Python list files. Yeah, so see again, like now its plan is good. Locate the ledger file, search the ledger, count occurrences, determine the favorite thing, like food item. Like this is what we wanted to do. And let's see if it does it or not. But at least the initial plan it's come up with is decent. There is this optimization we done in the list files bit where like a dot or a slash, like a forward slash or whatever you have, always results in looking up all file objects. And so that's came in use here because we are, oh man, I hope the model doesn't die. We're using, yeah, okay, it didn't. Great. So did list files, it's found of like the core documentation files, it's found the like bean count file, which is great. And now it's viewing that. which was its plan, I think, right? No, its plan was to grep, but it did the view file, which is, I guess, fine. But like, yeah, we wanted to be doing more greps than view files, or at least not view files without line ranges, because they usually won't be practical. But maybe the list files with line numbers, this like item may help steer the model to do more view files with line ranges and or use grep. Okay, so I think it's done this thing of like outputting. Wait, this is this is not all. I don't think this is the whole file, but maybe just the relevant transactions. Yeah, I think it's not part, but this is an interesting question. I don't know what's his favorite food was that he brought. Can keep mapping across for the model not dying on us. Gemini has been slower these days and a bit flaky. I'm using Gemini. Like for normal stuff, I'll like end up using at least in the past few days GPT. Though I do prefer 2.5 Pro when I can use it. But for testing, as I mentioned, like you need a reasoning model to understand at least a bit better what the model is thinking when it selects a tool, even if it's not always fully coherent. And the reasoning models which output their thoughts are right now like Claude models and then Gemini models. The OpenAI models do output summaries, but you need to kind of go through some biometrics or some hoops before you can get the answer, get the like reasoning traces. Okay, so it's answered, and great, we have an answer. Ibex and deer were the items that we spent most, we being OTC, spend most on. So the OTC, the early man, seems to be more into Ibex and deer than they are into other food items. This is great. Okay, to wrap this up, let's see. We tested a few variants of questions, which allowed us to see how the model is stringing together like multiple tool uses. And we have an idea of what is a coherent or a reasonable reasoning trajectory for the kinds of tool use like sequence the model should use for any question. We started off with a smaller, simpler question. All the questions that we asked were, just to maybe reiterate, but just to bring into context, where all of the questions were questions which Khoj right now can't actually answer, even if it is answering for you, it's not. You can't technically do it. So like from the first question of like, wait, how many documents do I have? Or like, I don't know, what was it? Like find all matches of Ibex in my like ledger, or find all things I bought and sold at the Bolzano City Market. Like all of these are like those all questions which require you to look through all documents. And we got Khoj to successfully do the tool uses. There were some issues that we've noted here for solving data. We didn't have enough time right now to go through all of them, but we were able to solve the like grep tool case insensitivity portion, where if the model searches for like ibex with a capital or not, it's not material. It should find matches, line matches on that. For that, we fixed that. We saw the model retry again and find matches, so it improved its quality. And then we have a few more notes on what all we can improve in the tools to give the model the appropriate context to better sequence its tool calls and efficiently get to answers or get to answers at all, right? And so that was kind of mostly our goal for this session. At some point, maybe in the future debugging session, I'll show you this tool, like this mini tool that we built in Khoj called Prompt Tracer. There are lots of other like cloud-hosted prompt tracing tools and stuff like that out there, but this was just a small tool which allows us to trace the model query response pairs. So all the stuff that model is given, and then all the stuff it outputs. Like each of that like step is noted down in a Git log and a Git branch. In like a small repository you can make and point to, you are being the Khoj developer, and then you can kind of step through all of them and see like what is the query, what is the response, what is the query, what is the response, the sequence of events that the LLM sees and responds to. And that allows you to kind of get better context of like, okay, what is the model even seeing? Decide what is it, like if the responses make sense or there's something you can improve in what it sees. Because a lot of times you'll notice when you're doing these things that you're just passing it really bad context or missing context and expecting it to get an answer, maybe because of some issue with the way you're processing what you're going to give to the model, or you assumed that the model is going to get something that it doesn't actually have. So you get like some kind of like source of truth of what the model sees and what its output. And so that's called a prompt tracer. You enable it by just, I think, like, where was it? Yeah, prompt tracing directory. You set that. And then over there, you can kind of go and see the prompt traces. And that becomes useful when you're like kind of doing deeper investigation into why Khoj is behaving in a specific way. But for now, what the main goal was just to understand how to debug these things, figure out what reasoning traces they're using, and if they make sense or not, and collect a bunch of information about what can be improved. Hope folks again found the session useful. I have no idea what I'm going to do next time. I'll pick up one of the tasks in our re-architecture for Khoj 2.0, and I've kind of announced that on our Discord, maybe later tonight or tomorrow. But we'll meet here, mostly the same time, 6:30 for an hour, but this one became an hour and a half. Hope folks got something out of it. See you folks soon.